Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class, we're going to be covering the last set of chapters for Forging the Darksword, chapters 5 through the end. Hopefully you have enjoyed discussing this book with me and you are excited to keep going and to discuss this last set of chapters with me. I think that we have the main major events of this particular book all come at the end here. So we've got some nice things to talk about for this ending and wrap up, as well as a little bit of a discussion on how we're going to transition into book number 2. So let's go ahead and jump right in, as always, with our recap. So we start off this set of chapters with Joram explaining the existence of Darkstone to Saryan, and works to convince him to look at the formulas for making the sword that he's trying to make, and to go against Backlash and to remove him as head of the community. Saryan eventually agrees to help, and they sneak out to look at the book in particular. And Saryan knows exactly what the formula is, knows exactly what he's supposed to do. He does not really want to do it at first. He feels like it is going against nature, but he eventually is convinced by Joram to help him create this sword. They then rope in Simkin and Mosiah to help them cover. So to take care of the guard, to act like, they're still there, and to distract Backlash. They agree to help them, and the next night, Saryan and Joram sneak out to the forge to make the dark sword. They do complete the forging of the sword. Joram does all the forging and the actual fire and shaping and whatnot, and Saryan helps him with the balance of how much of each of the materials to use and heating up the sword with his ability, with giving it life. Afterwards, Backlash is pretty suspicious about what went on in the forge and what they were doing, and he ends up finding a little crucible from their time making the forge, and he believes that he knows exactly what they were up to. Meanwhile, we see Vanya, who is then trying to talk to his informant again. Still don't know exactly who he is, but the informant tells him that they forged the sword, that they knew about the Darkstone, everything is obviously done. So Vanya says, hey, I need you to bring them into me personally, alive, and bring them here. So that's the new mission for this informant, was to bring them personally to Bishop Vanya. Then the next day, Saryan and Joram lure Backlash to the forge because they plan to attack him at that point. And they do attack him and end up being able to overpower them. Both of them together are able to utilize the dark sword in order to drain his powers enough to subdue him, and Joram kills him with the sword. From there, we see Vanya again, who tries to contact his informant, who doesn't answer. And so instead, he decides to contact somebody else. And that is where we're leaving ourselves at the end of Book 1, Forging the Darksword. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have enjoyed discussing it with me. It's really nice being able to reread this story again. It's been a while, and just feel it be refreshed and see the intricacies of this story progress again. So hopefully you have enjoyed it and you are looking forward to Book 2. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to talk about is the persisting mysteries that we have in Book 1. Because obviously we have multiple books, but not all the answers were given to us here in Book 1. We have two large characters, not really like a main character, but two characters that are very large in this book, or very, what is the term I'm thinking of, guys? Help me out here. They are heavily a part of the story, as we can say. Obviously, my brain is not working right now. One is Simkin and one is Bishop Vanya. Both of them, we don't really know anything at this point about them. We don't really understand a lot. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about both of them. First, let's talk about Simkin, because Simkin is a character that we know we don't know about him throughout the whole story. Like, literally, we understand that we know negative about Simkin. We don't understand him at all. From the very beginning, he has these personality swings. He acts kind of a little crazy. We don't know if he's really smart or if he's really powerful or if he's just an idiot. Obviously, we believe he's powerful because Blatchloch keeps him around, and he keeps fixing situations even if he got them into that situation, and he keeps appearing at random times and seems to know a lot. So overall, we already understand that Simkin is a mystery in and of himself, from the first time we meet him until the very end of the book. He is actively trying to help Joram against Blatchloch, which is super interesting because we obviously don't know his goals, we don't know what he's hoping for, we don't know who he is really. So we don't really understand why he was pitting against Blatchloch, but he was. So we have an ally, even if we don't understand why there's an ally, but he's obviously tailing along with Joram, and he is helping him to reach his goals. Whether he knows about the prophecy or not, and possibly his involvement in it, it's tough to say. We haven't really heard anything about that from Simkin. But we do know that he is being helpful. However, we don't really know exactly sometimes what he deems as helpful or why he's doing certain things. For example, he kills the guard in this set of chapters instead of just knocking him out. So what would be the purpose of killing the guard versus just knocking him out? It seems like he's trying to get them into more trouble, but it seems like he probably did it on purpose based on, the fact that he gave him poison. And even though he's pretending like he didn't know that it was poison, it is likely that he probably did, since he did know what he was putting into the guy's drink. So kills the guard instead of, which then escalates things. So we don't really understand exactly what his motivation is and what he is doing at certain points. He always seems to know exactly what's going on, though. Like, he never seems to be out of the loop or have to be informed of something. He already knows or guesses what people are going to say or what people are going to want, especially when it comes to Joram. So we understand that he can turn into inanimate objects, and he seems to be hiding himself around places a lot. But the question is why, and what is he exactly looking for? We do even have a few serious moments with him. We've had some shrewd looks, especially in this last section. And when Simkin was occupying Blatchloch's time while they were forging the sword, he talked about how Joram and Saryan play the game, or how they play games. And so he's very astute about other people. He's very knowledgeable, very much able to ascertain people just by interacting with them or based on what he knows of them. So he has these moments of sharpness and of knowing more than just what's going on, but he knows something on a higher level. So we really see these moments where we're confused about exactly who he is. For those of you who also followed the Dragonlance Chronicles that we already talked about, it's very similar to kind of like a Fizbin character. Of course, same authors for this, but Simkin in many ways is very different, but they do both have a similar characteristic in their characters, is that they act like they're dumb and they're all over the place and very like they don't really know what they're doing, kind of trying to be unsuspecting and just kind of annoying to people to make them not look too closely. and has these moments of surety and moments of where this character is not really what he seems to be or how he portrays himself. So hopefully we will find out who he is in the next book, or before at least the trilogy is done. That would be super great to actually know exactly who he is, and to actually know what his wants, his motivations are, his goals, what his thought process is. Like, it would just be great to understand Simpkin's role and what he wants, because right now he's kind of a wild card. He is somebody who we get is an ally of Joram, at least at this time, but who could very easily just throw a wrench into everything and could just screw everything up, and we wouldn't even realize until it's too late. So Simpkin is definitely one of the main mysteries, I think, that is going on in this particular book, and in general this series, at least to this point. So hopefully we get some answers soon, but you never know with Simpkin. So we've got Simpkin as part of our mystery on Joram's side. On the opposite side, with the catalysts, we have Bishop Vanya, and by extension his informant that he's been talking to. So we see in these set of chapters that his plan is escalating. We don't know exactly what his plan is at this point, but we can see he's escalating it up. He's moving forward at some way. We understand that Joram and Saryan are very important for his plan. I'm not really sure at this point why Saryan is important to his plan. Like, why would you send a catalyst there who literally didn't really do anything helpful in terms of Joram? He didn't bring him back. He didn't really do well at the community. He helped Joram, make a sword that can fight magic, which I don't think was in Bishop Vanya's planning. So what was the reason to send Saryan out there? We still really don't understand why he was placed out there, or if he was supposed to, the expectation was that he was going to do something in particular. We do realize that he's doing things because of the prophecy. He even mentions the prophecy to the informant and reminds him that that is why certain things had to be precise, like not killing Joram. But we don't really understand whether he is trying to help fulfill the prophecy, if he's trying not to fulfill the prophecy, and it's very unclear what he's actually doing. I mean, he was supposed to have taken all the dead children and, killed them. So the fact that Joram is alive seems like it might have been deliberate, though we can't really say for sure. Maybe this was the work that he didn't realize was going to happen and now has had to make new plans now that Joram lived. But it's tough to say at this point. Again, him being a mystery. And we do know that his informant was in the technologist community. Now, we don't know for certain who the informant was. In this particular set of chapters, I feel like it tried to give us a few clues about who it might be. And my guess, based on the kind of the clues and the things going on, was that it could have been possibly Blatchlodge. I know it kind of seems like that would be a weird person for it to be, considering he was trying to get Simpkin to tell him exactly what was going on with Joram and Saryan, and he didn't seem like he knew about Bishop Vanya's plans or anything. But, it does kind of allude to that in the fact that Blatchlodge would have been powerful enough to bring Joram and Saryan in to him personally, to the bishop. Also, he didn't answer right after Joram killed Blatchlodge. Now, these might be red herrings, of course. We don't really know who the informant was at this point or why they didn't answer. But it does seem like they're kind of alluding to the fact that it could have possibly been Blatchlodge. Especially because he already knew that he forged the sword and everything like that. So he knew things more than just some of the other people in the community would be. Of course, we had a little bit of possibly of a Simpkin, since Simpkin does know Bishop Vanya, and it seems like he's in his inner circle, but for me it didn't feel like they were, at least in this little ending part, really alluding to him. It was alluding more towards Blatchlodge. Of course, we don't totally know, and there is now going to be a new informant, or at least he's talking to somebody else. We don't know where that person is or what their role is going to be, but we're going to hopefully find out some of these answers in the next book. And again, Bishop Vanya has that similarity with Simpkin in the fact that he is a mystery, for we don't really totally understand his wants, his motivations, what his plan is, where he's going. It seems like he might even be taking over, the emperor position. He's wanting the empress to die. He's tracking, the heirs to the throne. He's checking, how stable the emperor is and keeping track of those things. So it's interesting to see he's got these different little things that we know about, but we don't fully see the big picture yet. If you have any guesses or any thoughts on either Bishop Vanya or Simpkin and their role and how we will see them in the future, I would love to hear about it and love to know your thoughts and feelings about these characters, especially since they are so mysterious in the dark on really what's going on with them up to this point. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Joram. So Joram, as we've discussed earlier, is an important part of the story. He's kind of our main focus. Though of course we also focus a lot on Saryan as well, but Joram is the one that is making things happen, and Saryan is just more a helper or somebody who is, going along for the ride and just ends up being there at this point. He's not really someone who's pushing forward things going on. Joram is the one that's doing that. He's the one that pushed to make the sword. He's the one that there's a whole problem to begin with, is because he is alive and doing things. So Joram is kind of our main focus, and we know that things are happening because of him, and that more things will continue to happen and change because of him. He's our catalyst for this world's evolution or potential evolution. We'll see actually if he does change the world or not and how things are going to be going. But right now, it seems like he is making a start of change for this world. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how he is now at the end of this story, what we know about him, how he's changed, if he hasn't changed, where we're at with Joram. He's a very calm and confident person. Calm has always been a little bit his thing, the depression and the kind of anger and stuff like that. He's not really like a blast kind of person. He's not like Simpkin, who's, if he got angry or outraged, he would be very vocal about it. We're more about, he's very a calm, level-headed person. He knows who he is, he accepts who he is, and he moves forward completely accepting who he is. He doesn't have anything where he's like, I wish I was different or anything like that. He just understands who he is, accepts it, and is confident in portraying himself as he is. If I can say that any more times, I guess I should try. But yeah, so he's just calm, cool, confident, and is just doing his things that he feels is right for him and right for what he wants to do. He doesn't even care that he's not really a compassionate, caring person. He's a very dark person, honestly. He's pretty much, I don't want to say he's evil. He's not evil, but he is a very dark person. He doesn't care about the well-being of others. He feels like that is their responsibility to care about themselves. He does have a couple people who are kind of in his inner circle that he does have some connection to and some cares for, like Mosiah. And it seems like Saryan he might be making a bit of a connection to. But for the most part, he doesn't care about the fact that he killed Blatchlodge. He's very cool about that and just thinking, okay, that's the way it is and that's how it's got to be, and so he killed him. And doesn't seem like that's weighing down his conscience much. But he's not like a mad killer where he's going to go on a killing rage. It's more about his death suited a purpose that was important and that needed to be done in his opinion, and so he did it. And, he's just going to walk into Marilyn and be like, okay, I'm here and I'm claiming what's mine. And that is exactly what he feels like he can do, and that's what he's going to do, whether it's going to cause all heck to break loose, whether it's going to cause other people problems, if it means he's got to kind of destroy things. He doesn't much care. He just cares mostly about himself and what he wants to have done. So he's kind of a very dark person, not just because, he's the depression and the kind of anger that he has built up in him. It's just more of he's not very empathetic towards others, and he accepts that about himself. He doesn't really care about that. We do learn, though Joram doesn't know it himself, we do know that he is actually the son of the Emperor and Empress. The one that we saw as the testing all the way back at the beginning of this book. So that changes things. He's not really, someone who's supposed to be just running around. He was supposed to be killed a long time ago when he was just a baby. He is obviously not his mother's son. He is somebody else that he doesn't know son. We kind of had those illusions where Saryan kept thinking he looked like somebody. We talked about his black, magnificent hair, which we have talked about previously, or the book mentioned previously about how the Empress's hair was so beautiful and black. So it's not really a surprise that he is the Emperor and Empress's son, but it does mean for sure that he is likely the one that the prophecy is talking about, because we do have the prophecy that we heard about in the beginning that kind of allude to the Emperor and Empress having a dead son that would be the destruction of the world. So we're going to see how that changes things and what will happen when he learns about who his real parentage is, especially if he's going to Marilyn to claim what is rightfully his and what he sees as his, which is the status of being in the nobles, since he does, believe that he is a noble's kid, and to kind of take revenge for his parents. Then what happens when he finds out that really what belongs to him is the emperorship? We're going to see how that plays out as well. Saryan mentioned that he remembered exactly now who he was and why he kept having these flashes of remembering someone who looked familiar to Joram. He remembers exactly who he is and has realized that the kid that he held, or the baby he held during that testing, is really Joram now. So Joram is definitely at an interesting place. We did have that moment where he had that darkness, or that was kind of overwhelming him, that depression spell, but he fought through that. It didn't end up taking over him too much, so maybe we'll see if those keep coming up or if he is able to fight through them now. That's something that he has at least progressed through. He has, like I said, warmed up to Saryan, so we're going to see how that relationship progresses, and that seems to be an important relationship in the fact that Saryan did help him create this dark sword, and he now kind of has an inkling about how it can be used based on how they used it against Blatchlodge. And he's going to be following Joram to Marilyn, so how will that play out going forward, and how that will affect how Joram goes about things, we're going to find out. Saryan might have an interesting influence upon Joram that we don't know about yet. Okay. I think that's about it for Joram. Obviously, just had on there was a little bit about him being determined, but we kind of already covered that with the fact that he is that confident person who's going to claim what is his, and he's determined to do that. So he's very much a headstrong character who we're going to see how the world changes around him, and if Joram will change himself based on new things coming up. Right now, he just had a really tough growing up. He's decided that he wants to kind of take revenge and take what's his, which has led him to making this dark sword. Not necessarily because he really really cared about overthrowing Flash Lodge. It was more just something he had to do in order to then move forward with going back to Marilyn and progressing with what he wants to claim. So we'll see if Saryan, now that he really knows Saryan and Saryan really cares about people in general, if that's going to affect him or how that relationship will also change or build upon events in the future. And last but not least, let's go ahead and talk about our transition between this book and the next book. So for every transition that we do, we go ahead and discuss the title and the first book cover and see what we can learn from it, and then we can compare it to the second one and see what we can possibly glean from the title and the cover for the next book. So I've got this here in front of me. I'll go ahead and put it up on the screen for you so that way you can look at it with me. It's a little bit harder to show it while talking about it at the same time like I do with the regular books, but I only have this one as an ebook. So I'll go ahead and pop it up here for you and we can discuss the elements together. If I can turn my iPad back on because I didn't touch it early enough. Okay, here we go. So first things first, the title, Forging the Darksword. And we did forge the Darksword in this particular book. So at least as the title goes, and for book 1, it's pretty self-explanatory what the title meant. We forged a dark sword, and that was where we actually ended this story. We started off with our beginning and we transitioned to the point where we got the dark sword forged, and now that chapter is done, that forging is done, then we have snipped it and we're gonna go toward another event or another set of events that is important for our next chunk. So again, this title is pretty much straightforward now that we've read the book, and even I feel like if you had just started the book and you were looking at it, you're like, okay, obviously there's gonna be some kind of forging or at least attempting of forging of a dark sword in this book. Though we didn't know what that meant until we read it. So title, check, very clear, very much makes sense in the scheme of the story here. Now let's go ahead and look at the actual depiction for this particular cover. If you guys have a different cover, please let me know what you glean from it and what you see. I would love to hear about it. The picture that I normally use for us right here is a different one that I actually have on my Kindle edition that I bought. It has a similar scene, but a little bit different. So, but this is the one that we are using for our discussion today. It seems to be the main one that shows up now. So that's why I feel like it's a good one to use. So we've got two characters in the cover right now. It looks like Joram, based on what we know of Joram, and Saryan, based on what we know of Saryan, and they are together forging the dark sword. So that makes complete sense about why they would be on the cover and what this cover is depicting. We see that they're in some kind of cave-ish looking thing, at least it looks like a cave to me, but we obviously know that that is the forge. We've got the anvil, the full, tools, and we have the kind of the beginning of the forge in the background on that side there. So we can really see that this is depicting the same thing that the title is telling us, is that somewhere there is going to be a forging of a dark sword, and we see our main two characters here, Joram and Saryan. And we see Saryan infusing the magic into the sword. So it makes it pretty, I don't want to say dramatic, but it makes it kind of an exciting cover to be like, oh my gosh, like what kind of sword making is this? We've got this like lightning thing coming around it. And as we read it, we understand that that's magic that he is imbuing with it and heating it with. So pretty interesting, pretty much a straightforward cover and straightforward title and depiction of what's going on. And it is of the main event in this particular novel. So, I do like the kind of older looking art style with the cover setup, with the Darksword Trilogy on the top and such. So you can tell it's a little bit of an older design, but I really like that. I think it has a lot of detail and a lot of character to it. Again, if you have a different cover, please let me know what you feel like the cover elements mean in terms of analyzing it for what part it's describing for the book. Okay, now we're going to do the next one. I'll go ahead and pop up that book 2's cover for us to discuss. Now this one I think is interesting because it's not quite so straightforward with the title. It says that the next one is called Doom of the Darksword. So it's not quite as easy to discern what that means. Forging of the Darksword is forging of a sword called the Darksword. Doom of the Darksword does not necessarily tell us what's going to happen. It says doom in there, which means, probably trouble, probably something bad's going to happen. Whether it's going to happen to Joram for having the Darksword, or if it's going to be Joram, making doom on other people. That's not easy to say, and it's not really easy to pinpoint and say, oh, doom means that. So it's definitely another or a different strategy to this title. It's not quite as clear and blunt about this is what this story is about. It's a little bit more open to interpretation, which is kind of interesting and good because as we're moving into more complexity of the story, it's not about getting to the point where we're forging the Darksword, which is something pretty straightforward. Now we're going into the unknown. Joram could do a lot of different things, and there could be a lot of different things that Vanya and Simkin are doing, and outcomes that will come out. I mean, this is literally him trying to go into Marilyn and just barge in there and, shake up the whole world as people know it. So, Doom of the Darksword definitely shows that it's going to at least be probably dark and probably a lot of bad things are going to happen, but we are more complex because there's more complexity to the story at this point and where we're headed. So, let's actually look at the cover elements. Again, it's got that same kind of format. We've got the big Darksword Trilogy at the top, old-timey kind of setup, and then we've got that depiction in the middle there. Okay, so again, this is not quite such a straightforward. It does look like a moment in the story, just like obviously the Darksword forging was a moment in the story, but it's a little bit harder to tell exactly what's going on in this moment and where we'll be leading to. But it does seem like Joram is in some trouble here. We see that similar figure, that Joram figure, who is being wrapped with rings of fire, it looks like, or at least of rings of magic that are containing him. And it looks like the Darksword is put into the grass at his feet. At least I'm assuming that's the Darksword versus the sword the other person is holding. So he's kind of in a moment, a quandary here. Something is not great for him right now. And the Darksword is not helping him at the moment. Then we have another two characters, and we're in the woods. This could possibly be the woods that are in like the Outlands. It could possibly be that. It could be that they didn't even make it to Merlin yet. We're not sure yet. But it's possible that this happens either on the way to Merlin or we don't make it to Merlin in this book. But in this scene, we've got the two characters. We've got one person that's dressed kind of finely. We got a pretty good outfit there with the red. I like the red tunic and like that bright color for the forest and such. And he also has a sword. It's tough to say exactly who that is. If you have a guess about who that is based on the characters that we already know, I'd love to hear it. But it doesn't seem like that'd be Saryan. It doesn't seem like that would be Simkin. No, I don't think that would be Simkin. He's not really a sword kind of guy, in my opinion. Blatchloch is dead. could possibly be Mosiah, but I don't think Mosiah would be against Joram in this situation, and it does seem a bit fine clothing-wise for it to be Mosiah. So for me, at this point, it seems kind of like a third party that we haven't met. Though I guess we'll find out when we do our next book discussion. And then we've got this dark figure in the back there, who looks like he's doing the magic onto Joram. He's got his hands spread out, holding him. So we definitely are not sure who that might be yet. You know, it could possibly be... Could possibly be a Duxaroth. That's very possible. I think they all wear black, and they're meant to capture and people and such, and to hold them and things like that. So it could be a Duxaroth that has tried to capture him. That's going to be my guess. Let me hear what you guys have to say, but that's my guess, is that that is a Duxaroth that is with somebody, maybe that informant that we don't know who exactly that is yet, who's going to try and capture Joram and bring him to Bishop Vanya. And, but we don't totally know what this is until we read the book. It's not quite so clear about what this is depicting. But that is my guess, and what I think we can glean from the cover to carry us forward to see if that's going to be the case in the next book. It's very interesting. If we're going to compare this to, like, the Belgariad series covers that we looked at, or even a little bit of the Dragonlance ones, is those were more had elements of the story on the cover, about whatever happened in that book, but not necessarily depicting a specific scene, while these two covers look like they're depicting a specific scene from the book. So super interesting, and we will go ahead and discuss that very soon. Hopefully you are as excited as me to move forward and to find out what is going to happen in the future. And I guess just a last note of our transition here is that we are at a stopping point here with Joram and Saryan moving forward after forging the Darksword. So now we are going to be switching our direction. We had a direction we were going, which was capture Joram growing up and then having to capture Joram and setting up Saryan to be the kind of person that would be sent out there and to then forge the Darksword with him. Now we are at a different point. We've finished that little section. We are at now a turning point of what will happen. Is more of an open suggestion. It's an open future. We're not totally sure where we're going to be going from here, but we do know we're going towards something new. And the fact that we're even leaving the community that we have grown to know better in these last about half of the book. So let me know your thoughts, your feelings, anything about either this book or what was going to be coming in the next book. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions and to see where you think that we're going to be going. I just would really like to have a conversation with you about it. And last but not least, before we go ahead and wrap everything up, let's just go over some nitty-gritty items I just wanted to kind of touch base on as we move forward for the next book. And of course, my printer liked to, block out like half of my first point here. Let me see if I can read it. So, I think what I put here, I'm pretty sure, is that Saryan knows about Joram being the Emperor and Empress's son. And I think it'll be really interesting to know what happens once Joram finds out, especially if Saryan doesn't tell him right away. So I think it'll be an interesting moment to see how Saryan goes about this, because he knows exactly who he is, and how Joram will be affected once he understands who he really is. We've had that confirmation from Bishop Vanya, but obviously these two characters are out on their own. So I'd just like us to keep in mind that Saryan actually knows who Joram is for sure now. He remembers, he figured it out, he gets what he's doing. So will he tell Joram? And if he does, when? And when he does, how will that react and change things? Let's just maybe keep that in mind as we progress through with this next book, because somehow we know Joram has to find out his true parentage. Second, Simkin made a comment that Joram will be emperor one day. So is this meant to be just a Simkin statement where he's just talking and making jokes and not being serious? Or is it serious that Joram will actually take what is his and become the emperor? If so, what will that mean for this world and for the direction they're gonna go? I think that's super interesting, is that he made this call, and then shortly after that we do find out, whether you guessed it or not, we do know for sure that Joram is the emperor and empress's son, all the way from back at the beginning. So interesting comment by an interesting person. And does Simkin want that? Is Simkin trying to get that? Will that actually come to pass? And last but not least, Vanya wants Joram alive, no matter what. There is a part in the prophecy that talks about how the person will be born dead, but will live, and then will die again, but live again. And so maybe that has something to do with the fact that Joram must be alive. Maybe he's worried about kind of a resurrection kind of deal. But I think it is very interesting that Vanya is working very hard to make sure that Joram did not die. And does that mean that he actually let Joram live instead of, killing him or whatever he was supposed to do with the baby when it was tested as not being alive? All right, that is it for our last set of chapters and our transitioning into our next book. I hope you have enjoyed discussing it with me and that you are looking forward to the next one, because I know I am looking forward to discovering things together with you. Before we head out, let's go ahead and go over our trivia question. This last trivia question was about the Krampus and what is its role during the holiday season. Basically, the Krampus is someone who, or a creature, not someone, more of a creature, like, that visits bad children, punishes bad children, usually is, kind of the opposite of Santa, likes to do naughty things, especially to naughty children. So, basically the anti-Santa, as I guess you could say. So any of those kind of answers would have worked for me, and there were 2 correct answers from Dan and Brendan. So nice job to you guys, and thanks so much for playing with me, everybody who participated. If you yourself would like to check out the trivia question and see if you can answer it, go ahead over to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net. It's going to be on that right-hand side. It'll be scroll down just a little bit on desktop, and it'll be there. If you're on mobile, you'll have to scroll almost all the way down, but then you will see it towards the bottom and be able to answer it. So hopefully you will continue to play with me. I have enjoyed playing with you, and I like to see your guys' answers and to see who can get it right. So thanks so much again to everyone who plays with me. All right, last but not least, let's go ahead and talk about where you can get a hold of me if down below is not the best place, though I would love reading your comments, and that is definitely a great place for communicating with me. If not, or if you'd like to go other places to just get updates and other things like that, there are 3 different social medias that you can follow me on. The first one is going to be Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. Then you can also follow me on Twitter, which is @fantasyfiction1. And I recently did start an Instagram for you guys to follow along with, and it is a little weak in that department. I have not had as much time to do the pictures, especially after I figured out exactly how to post and what I should post on there. I just have not had as much time as I would like to develop as much on the Instagram part. But bear with me, because I am working on it, and I do have plans to try and post more often after the holidays, so hopefully I can do that for you guys. If you'd like to follow me there, it is going to be also @fantasyfiction1. So all of those places you can also direct message me. I would be happy to hear from you and have a discussion with you at any time. If you're looking for something else a little bit more interactive, you are more than welcome to join us on the Discord. That link is down below for our personal Discord server, and you can direct message me there. You can get updates from me about the channel and my blog and anything else there, but you can also talk to your fellow fantasy fanatics, and we've got several of them over there. We've got a growing Discord with people talking and discussing things. This time we've been talking a little bit about Santa and Christmas related things, as well as just fantasy in general, so hopefully you will join us over there. I would love to talk to you and to see your thoughts and opinions. And I guess that's it from me today. I hope you guys are having a wonderful holiday season, and I won't be posting next weekend because it is Christmas, so no class next weekend. Sorry about that, but I do wish you a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate it, and if you don't or you celebrate a different holiday, then I hope your holiday is wonderful. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.